Now we're going to cover the left, right, and mono channels. Let's go back to the console and take a look. Here on the right side of the console, you'll see that I have the left channel selected and we have the Master Overview. In the top left, we have the compressor, which is actually engaged and we can see signal is being routed. To the right of that, we have the direct in as well as the mute status. Below that, we have any of the safes from automation recall. Next, we have the bus trim, and as you can see by the gain control knob that I am padding this channel down a little bit, and it is actually linked to the right channel as well. To the left, you'll see that the insert button is also engaged, and if you remember, I do have a hardware inserted on this channel. Below that, we have the EQ. The EQ is engaged, but in the EQ window that we have below, we don't have any visual representation because I'm actually using a graphic EQ on this channel. Below that, we have our sends overview for matrix 1 through 8, where we can select 9 through 16 or 17 through 24. And last, we have our fader and master assignments window. Because we have our fader actually on the hardware surface, we don't need any visual representation here. Here, we're in our configuration overview window. As we see, we have the destination of the left output coming out of my DL451 located in front of house on output 1. If we also select the drop-down, we notice that I am actually multi-assigning these outputs. The reason for this is I actually have output 1 going out on the analog outputs as well as the AES EBU outputs. And it's also going out of my outputs on stage. If we click the destination button, this is going to bring up the patching window to allow us to patch in any more additional outputs. Below that is the link options. If we go ahead and select that, it brings the window up and it shows that currently we have our input controls, our direct input, our dynamics, our inserts, our EQ, bus sends, fader and delays all linked to the left and the right channels. And finally, we have the link button engaged, so this way the left and the right channels are engaged. Below that, we have the bus trim. As you can see on the gain control knob, I'm actually padding down approximately 7 dB. That's because I'm driving the console kind of hard, and because I have a hardware insert on there, I wanted to go ahead and correct my bus trim so that I have proper levels going to the hardware. To the left of that, we have a phase invert button if we needed to invert the phase. Here, we have the direct input section. The gain control knob is set to infinity because I don't have anything assigned to the direct input. We could also see that here on the window. It shows that there is nothing assigned to our direct input. If we wanted to, we can go ahead and select the source button, and that's going to bring up the patching screen. Back to the top, we see that the direct input is actually muted. That's because I have nothing assigned, so it's automatically muted. Next, we have the B button. Not to be confused, this button has nothing to do with the area B on the right side of the console. With the B button engaged, and if we were to solo this channel and had any signal routing into the direct input, this would route the audio to the monitor B section of the console. So if we had our headphones plugged in on the right side of the console, this is where we would hear that signal. If the B button was not engaged, this would route the audio to the A monitor, so if our headphones were plugged in on the left side, that's where we would hear the signal. Input zone, if this button was engaged, this is going to alter the delay compensation characteristics of the console. Finally, we have the pre button. This allows the direct input to be pre-fader. Here, we have the status buttons for the automation safes for the channel. This is where we can safe out EQ, automation, dynamics, mute status, mic inputs, as well as the fader. Here, we have the insert window. As you see, we have the insert button engaged because I actually have my max BCL inserted across this channel. If we were to click on any of the destination or source buttons, this will bring up the patching screen to allow us to go ahead and patch in any hardware or onboard effects into the channel. Next, we have our delay window. This is not to be confused with, say, delay like on a vocal where we would hear repeats. This actually has to do with output delay. This is a great feature to have right here at front of house because if you don't have system processing here and you need to add any delay to the outputs, you can do that right here from the console. Next is the processing order. Currently, I have the dynamics in front of the insert point and then after the EQ. If we go ahead and engage this button, you'll see that the EQ now is in front of the insert and the dynamics is post-insert. Next, we have our compressor overview. And as one would expect, we have our 5 time constants that you would find on any given compressor, such as threshold, ratio, attack, release, and makeup gain. In the top left, I have the MOR button engaged, which stands for More. The best way to explain the MOR button is if you really want to excite the compressor. This allows you to hear more of the compressor, especially if you're trying to get that creative type of compression going. Below that, we have our toggle button for our modes. This allows us to toggle through the 5 different compressor types that we have on the console. Below that, we have a 3-way knee control. Below the compressor controls, we have the Sidechain Controls. Here, if we engage, this will bring the filter in. Below that, we have our width control. As we see right now, it's a very wide width, and if we engage the width button, it starts to narrow the filter. And then finally, it gives us like a peak filter. Next to that is the menu button. By engaging the menu button, this is going to bring up the patching screen, so if we wanted to sidechain in any channels, we can go ahead and do that from here. And last, we have the listen button. This allows us to listen into the sidechain frequency as we sweep to find the frequency that we're looking for. And just so you know, with the listen button engaged, this is going to route the audio to the A monitor bus. Here, we see that the compressor is patched internally, so any signal that's going to the left and right is what's going to be affecting the compressor. If we engage the source button, again, the patching screen comes up and we can go ahead and patch in any other channels into the sidechain. Down on the bottom, we're giving our gain reduction meters. As you can see, I have a very small amount of gain reduction happening on this channel. Below that, you can actually see signal is passing through the channel in the compressor. Here, we're in the EQ overview screen. If you notice, we have a 6-band fully parametric EQ on this channel. If we go to band 1 and we press the shape button in, you'll see that we're presented with a shelf filter, as well as a 6 dB roll-off and a 12 dB roll-off. On band 2, if we engage the shape button, we're presented with a 24 dB per octave roll-off. And finally on band 6, if we engage the shape button, we have a shelf filter, a 6 dB per octave roll-off, as well as a 12 dB per octave roll-off. On the right side, you'll see that we have a GEQ button here. This stands for Graphic Equalizer. This gives us the option to either use the 6-band fully parametric EQ or insert a graphic EQ. I like the graphic EQ, so I'm going to go ahead and engage this button. As you see now, the graphic EQ is inserted on the channel. If you remember in the earlier videos with the advanced mixing navigation buttons, if I have this graphic EQ button engaged, I now have full control of the graphic equalizer where my VCAs would be. And I can toggle either to the left or to the right to go ahead and find the frequencies that I want to control. Here we have the Sends Overview. And if you notice, we just have our matrix only in this window. If you look at matrix banks 1 through 8, you'll notice that the names are associated with each of the matrix channels for easy identification and routing. If we want to go to matrix 9 through 16, we can scroll by 8 by engaging this button. If we want to go to 17 to 24, we go ahead and press that again. Now, if you notice on matrix 3, 7, 9, 11, 13, and 15, those look a little bit different than the others. That's because these are stereo matrices. So for example, on matrix 3, this is actually going to be our pan control, where matrix 4 is going to actually control the level to that matrix. Now in the fader window, we have our mute and our solo statuses. In between, we have the B button. Just so you know, this button is not to be confused with the area B on the right side of the console. What this button actually does is if you engage the solo button, any signal is going to be routed to the monitor B bus. So if we have our headphones plugged into the right side of the console, this is where we're going to be able to monitor that audio. If we didn't have the B button engaged and we pressed the solo button, our headphones plugged into the left side of the console is where we would be able to monitor that. The same goes with the monitor meters. If we have the B button engaged, we're going to see metering on the monitor B portion of the console. If the B button is not engaged, as you see here, we have signal present on the left side of monitor A. Below that, we have a visual fader representation. Of course, we actually have our main left and rights right on the console control surface, and as we make any changes, the visual representation of the fader is also going to change. To the left of that, we have our VCA and pop group assignments. So if this channel was associated with any VCAs or pop groups, we would have a green indication light that they're assigned.